Good morning. So I tried to do a Facebook Live this morning and it didn't work because I think everybody is on Wi-Fi. It just kept coming in and out and in and out. So I just wanted to touch base. Like I said, a friend had asked if I could do a Facebook Live every morning and I tried. But if I have to do it this way, that's okay too. So I'm going to take down the other Facebook Live because it was just too skippy and really annoying. But I just want to touch base and talk about how your week went. We made it through the first week. Yay! And to see how you're holding up and how you were coping and what was going on with you. And if you have any tips or suggestions for people, you can put it underneath. And anything you think might help other folks. My dog's climbing up on my lap now. But I just wanted to see how everybody was doing and do a check-in. And a lot of this reminded me of when my kids were really little and I was able to be a stay-at-home mom. I was blessed to be a stay-at-home mom. I loved it, but there were times where I felt so isolated that it was really difficult for me because I'm a very social person, in case you don't know. Ask my kids, I'll talk to anybody, and being home alone with them was really tough. So in the generations before ours, there were a lot more parents that stayed home, a lot more moms that stayed home, and they had their moms that stayed home, or their aunts were also home, or their neighbors were home. So they really had a much bigger network to rely on, and they weren't, so isolated. And I remember when my kids were really little, and Seamus was still nursing through the night. Little Buddy was, he was a toddler, and he was a toddler. I mean, he was like a really crazy, energetic little boy. And I could not get them down for a nap at all. At this particular time, my husband was going through chemotherapy and my life was just really difficult and I was feeling emotionally taxed. And I needed them to nap because I needed a little bit of space for myself and I could not get them down for a nap. And I walked outside on my front porch and I literally screamed, like I screamed. And my neighbor happened to be outside, who was an older woman, and she just looked at me and she said, honey, we've all been there. And that moment made me feel like, okay, I'm not actually losing my mind. Other people struggle too, and it's okay to struggle. And then she came over and said, let me watch the boys for a little bit. You just take a walk around the block. And honestly, that little walk to clear my head and have some space of my own was all that I needed to be able to go in and take care of my kids. And it really made me feel like, okay, it's okay not to be okay sometimes. And I think that's where we're at right now. Like, it's okay not to really be perfect at this. So I had been having conversations with parents on Facebook the other night, how they were doing with the homework, how they were coping and what they were doing. And one mom was just really stressed because she couldn't get the homework packet. They ran out of them to deliver at the bus and she couldn't get to the school, and she just wanted to do so right by her child. She really wants to succeed at this. She wants to make sure that she's giving her child every opportunity to succeed under these circumstances. And she felt really bad about the fact they didn't get the homework packet. And I asked her, I said, well, just take a step back. Has your child ever missed homework before? I mean, kids miss school sometimes, they miss an assignment. And she said, yes. And I said, so why is this one more important? Why are you stressing over this one? Because right now we really need to let some things slide. And then she took a little step back and she said to me, you're right. I don't know why I'm stressing about this. So right now, and she's only stressing because she wants to do absolutely what's best for her child, right? So right now, we need to be able to let some things slide. We need to be patient with each other and we need to be patient with ourselves. The teachers are doing a really great job. Hats off to the teachers for having to work under really difficult circumstances. And the parents are doing a really good job because you're still trying to work, you're still trying to run your household, and now you're teaching too. So, or at least assisting with the teaching. So we need to all be patient with ourselves, and we really need to make sure that we maintain connections. So when my kids were really little, like I said, there were times where I felt very isolated until they got into kindergarten. And then when my older son got into kindergarten, I found a group of moms that we were all in the same boat. We're all stay-at-home moms, and we would meet once a week and we would have coffee and let the littles play together. And that was really something that made me feel connected to to the other moms, but made me feel human too, because I was with other adults, right? I love my kids, love spending time with kids, but sometimes you need adult interactions. You need conversations that don't revolve around Legos and Bob the Builder. So I would go out, sometimes I went to the grocery store and God forbid someone said good morning to me or tried to talk, because I would just grab onto that person and talk for as long as they would let me. My kids might argue that I still do that. But like those connections, I was so desperate for adult connections that, you know, I would take them anywhere I could find them. But we live in a very different world now. And if we had been in this position 10 years ago, I think things would be a lot different. I worry about people with depression. I worry about people feeling isolated. I worry about people feeling disconnected from society, because those things aren't good for you mentally. And that's what I'm concerned about and troubled about. As a parent, you need to maintain your friends, your family connections while you're taking care of your kids, because if you're not healthy physically and mentally, and you're getting too stressed out, you're not going to be able to give the kids what they need. I was in a meeting recently, and the facilitator said her mom always told her you can't give what you don't have. And if you're not doing things to sort of build yourself up or refill your spirit, then you're not going to have anything to give to your children right now. And this is a 24/7 thing. It's a new dynamic for everybody. A lot of dads are home that aren't usually home. A lot of moms are home that aren't usually home. Your kids are home all the time. And it's a very different dynamic for families. As Americans, we're busy all the time. Like for me, the transition hasn't been that difficult, because I just am used to having my kids home. Their schools transitioned them very easily. They started off with sort of a check-in, and then the next day there was a little bit of work to do, and then on the next day they had a full day. So they eased them into it so that they would be able to use the technology. So as far as that goes, we had a pretty easy transition, but the whole dynamic is much different, and maintaining those connections is really important. So especially, you know, with the kids too, especially the teenagers. But our my son's principal does a morning meeting every morning, and he does a YouTube video that he'll put on social media for the kids, and he does, you know, the morning message with them. He tells a joke of the day. He just does things to stay connected and let them see that he's okay, things are sort of normal, and that he's still there, the school's still there. So I think those things are important. My son had the other day I yelled to say that lunch was ready, and my 15-year-old said, "Mom, give me a minute, I'm in a Zoom meeting." that was a switch of roles, because that's usually me. I usually, you know, I'm able to work remotely a lot of the time, and that's usually me saying, "You gotta be quiet, I'm in a meeting." So that was a little reversal of roles. But that I think the Zoom meetings and the FaceTime that they're doing is important for them to maintain connections. And I don't usually allow video games Monday through Friday, but I've lifted that too, because my husband came to me and said, you know, Victoria, this isn't like when we were kids. He's not sitting in the basement alone playing Atari. And yeah, we're that old. It was Atari. These kids are FaceTiming each other while they're playing video games, and they have headsets and they're talking together. They're actually socializing and connecting with each other as they're playing. So I've lifted that once their homework is done and their school day is done, because they actually have a day. They have times that they have to check into each class, and they actually have a block of the day that is for school. After that's done, then they can go down, they can play, because they're sort of hanging out with their friends. And the other day I had a friend that was going through a tough moment, and she was stressed out, and I FaceTimed her and another friend of ours, and we just, you know, just to check in on her and see how she was doing, but I wanted to see how she was doing. And we had a few really stupid laughs about things, and we were having a good time hanging out. And, you know, my husband came home and he was like, "What are you doing?" Because I'm looking at my phone laughing. And but those connections are important for you too to maintain. So, you know, we are social creatures by nature, and this isolation thing isn't good. Make sure you get outside, kick your kids outside to play in the yard. You can still go for drives to the beach. We're not on, you know, lockdown. Hopefully it doesn't ever come to that. But still get outside, because you have to change your environment. You can't be cooped up inside your four walls the whole time. Like I said, that's good for you physically to get fresh air and exercise, but mentally, this is going to take a toll on a lot of people. We're all being affected by it. And there isn't a person in this state that isn't being affected by this, and they may never ever actually have the virus, but they're going to be affected financially. They're going to be affected. Just their day-to-day routine has changed. I mean, it's not normal to just put the brakes on. We're really active people and we're a busy family, and to just put the brakes on gives you its own kind of anxiety. Like, there are so many times this week where I felt like, where am I supposed to be? And only realized that there was no place to be. There's nothing happening. So, yeah, so that's all I wanted to say. I wanted to just check in, see how you made it through your week. If you've got tips or tricks for people, put it on the bottom there. And just wanted to just remind you to stay connected to people, because that's really important. And yes, you're connected to the people in your house, but you need those outside connections too. You need to talk to your friends. You need to let off steam. You need to know that it's okay to let some things slide. I mean, we've been home all week. You would think that my house would be really clean. Nope. So there are books and notebooks and papers. Yeah, when my youngest son was born and I went to the pediatrician, now I had, the active toddler, and I had him, and she said, you just need to let some things slide for a while. And, don't worry if there's dishes in the sink. Don't worry if your house isn't perfect, because you just can't do it all, and you have to prioritize your well-being first. Sleep when you have to sleep, eat, take breaks when you need them, and let the other stuff go. So I guess, the theme of this one might be let it go and stay connected. And be well. Stay connected to people. Take care of each other. And be safe. Have a good Saturday.